Hey everybody, we're back with another edition of the Utopia podcast. It's been a while. We took a couple weeks off to get tan, rested up, refocused, the batteries recharged. I am Chris. Alongside me is Tommy. Tommy, how's it been going?
Pretty good. I don't know about you, but I didn't get a tan. I've been shelled up playing the game too much.
Well, I was able to play with the windows open, so I think I got somewhat of a tan. I'm going to hope that counts for something.
At least on your left side.
One side of me looks great. The other side a little sickly. A lot of news to get to, so we're going to fly through it for the next 10 minutes of action. Everyone, thanks for checking out the show, and make sure to visit us at ncaastrategies.com. First off, this past week, we had our first of the year Community Gaming Night online for, what else, NCAA Football 10. A very impressive turnout for guys on the PS3 and 360. I know I was on and played 4 games, one against Tommy. Tommy snuck out a 14-12 win. A great time. Played 4 guys. Great games. Tommy, what did you think real quick of Community Gaming Night online we had this week?
Had a lot of fun. Like you mentioned, you and I got a game in. I was able to knock you out 14-12. Thankfully, I held you to those 2 field goals instead of touchdowns. Posted a highlight video of it, so anybody wants to go out to my YouTube channel, you can go out there and find that there. Also played a couple other guys that had a lot of fun. It was, had a really good turnout, and hopefully we can have even more on the next night that we plan.
Yeah, the next night won't be too far off, probably in about the next week or two. Definitely keep checking NCAAstrategies.com. We would love to have a huge turnout, make it bigger and better every week out. The big news coming out now, and there's a lot of discussion talking about it, the second patch that's coming out for NCAA Football 10. Right now, there's no ETA on this. They're still hard at work on it, and we can't stress enough that once it's finalized, submitted to Microsoft and Sony, and it's about ready to go live, we'll get a full list of what's fixed in the patch. We know that there are 30 line items, around 30 give or take, that will be addressed. We know a couple of them from posts that Adam Thompson has made at Operation Sports. We'll talk about them real quick. The first one is a 15 scholarship bug. Tommy, can you explain that real quickly, what that is exactly?
Yeah, it's not anything I've run into myself, but apparently some people are running into, in their dynasties, they're running into where they only have 15 scholarships. At first, people thought they were being put on probation or something like that, but turns out it's actually just a bug that happens seemingly at random. So that will be addressed in patch number 2.
And the second item that we know that will be in there is that the run blocking slider after patch 2 will no longer affect the blocking on kickoffs. A lot of people have said they've gone in and adjusted the run blocking slider only for it to lead to the special teams just allowing a lot of returns, really altering the special teams game. That will be fixed in the second patch. And again, approximately we know there are 30 line items or so. EA, and I do not blame them for this, they're keeping this really close to the vest, what's in it and not going to be in it. I think they want to make sure that they get things in there. They don't want to come out and name something now and then later have to retract and say, hey, we couldn't get that in for whatever reason. Keep checking NCAAstrategies.com. Moving on from patch 2 to something else. This is something that you found today, a very good find. Some people were wondering, how do I get maybe more names or mascot names for my team builder teams to be recorded for next year? How do I get them submitted? How do we get Brad Nessler to say the teams that we want? Tommy, you found this out. How can they get this done for next year?
As they're preparing for next year, in order to record the names for these mascots that Brad Nessler will say, Adam Thompson will be going through, looking at all the team builder teams that have been created and actually looking for unique team names that are out there so that they can have Brad Nessler actually record them to put them into next year's game. If you're out there and you've created the Prairie Dogs, then next year there's a good possibility that you'll actually hear your recorded team name in the game. Obviously, the more people that have created a particular team with the mascot, more than likely it increases the chances. So if you're the one guy out there that's created the Jersey State Acorns, well, there may not be a good chance that Acorns will pop up.
That still is a very cool thing that they're going to go through the existing schools, so that I think that gives everybody hope for their very unique mascot might be announced next year in the game. This year in NCAA Football 10, there's been some discussion over in the community at NCAAstrategies.com and other sites about some new icons that have popped up in recruiting. We know EA will be putting out a video information later on, but until then there's been a lot of discussion of what about these new icons mean that people are seeing in relation to players they are targeting or looking at. The first one, and we'll talk about what we think they mean, and by we, not only us but the community, we've kind of deduced for these icons. The first one being a ×2 icon. Tell me what's kind of the consensus on what this means if you see this in recruiting?
On this one, on these icons, you'll see them actually behind the player's image, usually whenever you're calling that particular player. For ×2, let's say you're pitching something that's very high that matches to a B+. For ×2, instead of getting the typical 14 points, you'll actually get usually around 28 points. It basically doubles the actual amount of effort that your calls are actually building up to. It's definitely one of those things that if you have extra time for the week, spend it on the guy that has times 2. You'll get a lot of benefit out of that. Obviously, once he starts to turn sour, stop the call. But you'll get that on all of the pitches you use for that player.
I kind of view it as, in my mind, it indicates that recruit is just enamored with you as the coach, with the school, whatever, and that whatever you're pitching to them, they're eating it up like candy. Is that probably the best way to view this as?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, obviously your low pitches still are going to give you a low number of points, but they still give you more points.
Okay, the next icon that people have seen and wondered is an unlocked padlock. First off, where do you see this at, and what seems to be the thought behind this one and what it means?
Again, whenever you are calling the particular player, you'll see the padlock behind the player's image. Basically, what this means is that if you haven't ever pitched that before, it could automatically be unlocked for you. I think typically they'll unlock 2 different pitches for you that you don't have to spend the extra time to find what his pitch rating is on that. You automatically know, and then you can use that in recruiting however you wish.
And there's also a pink diamond icon, and again, I'll ask you, what does it mean?
This one I haven't actually seen myself, but as I understand it from reading other people talk about it, it's actually not on the call screen, but rather on when you're browsing recruits that aren't currently on your list. So let's say, for example, the number 4 halfback. You haven't recruited him before. You haven't added him to your list of recruits at all. But then you go out and look at all of the recruits and you come across him. He has a pink diamond. If you add him to your list, he'll instantly become interested. So he might go from a previously not in his top 10, but now all of a sudden you're his number 2 or number 3 interested school. Basically, if you see these guys out there, go out there and grab them. Typically, what we're seeing is that they're usually 4- and 5-star recruits. So these are the guys that they kind of had to have a hidden interest in them, and they're just waiting on you to come out and tap into that.
And something else, you mentioned this before the show, and let me know if I have it right. Is there also a possibility that you can sign players right away that you've had really little to no contact with before?
Right. I don't know how exactly that's happened. It's happened to me a couple times, but I didn't particularly notice anything as far as icons or anything. But a guy that I'm, let's say, number 5 on his top 10 list, I'll go in there and offer him a scholarship, and he'll immediately sign. I've even seen it to where I'll just have a 20-minute quick call just to give him the scholarship, and he'll still go ahead and sign, even though I'd never talked to him previous before that. Again, I don't know exactly why that happens. I know it ties into that downloadable content that they offered for the recruiting advisor. These are just sort of ways to not have to purchase the recruiting advisor and still get most of that same benefit.
All right, before we wrap up the show, real quickly, what are kind of your current impressions on the game now that we've been out for several weeks? What are your impressions and thoughts, in a brief manner, if you can, on NCAA Football 10?
I'm really enjoying the game. I've played it quite a bit, probably as much, if not more, than what I played 09 in the beginning. And I've definitely played it a lot more just simply online random games. I'm still playing my online dynasties that I did last year, but now I'm having so much more fun with the game that I go out there and play just guys that I find online now. It offers a much more of a challenge than it did last year, to where you have to actually have that sort of chess match in the game. Last year it was just basically whoever held the ball the last. This year it's whoever can outthink the other coach.
Have you had good luck finding players who play fair online? And if so, are you using the sportsmanship aspect of Season Showdown to find that out?
Actually, I haven't played that many guys that are just sort of random guys out there. Usually I'm trying to find guys that are already on my friends list or guys that I know are from Utopia. Those are the guys I know I'm going to get a straight game with, whereas going to just the East Room and just picking a guy at random. Like you mentioned, the sportsmanship really helps, but at the same time, guys find ways around that regardless, and a lot of them just haven't even signed up for Season Showdown so that you can't see their sportsmanship right now.
That'll end this edition of Utopia Podcast. Tommy, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Everyone, thanks for listening to this edition of the Utopia Podcast.